So I don't know if you can tell from those of you who are at home, we're not in C103 today. I'm over here in C104, and we just have like 3 people with us live today, and it looks like the rest of you are joining from home. But we tried to set it up today in the C104 classroom because we have a workshop today at 6 o'clock. And so we aren't sure exactly how many people are coming, but we wanted to make sure that we had enough room for everybody if they do come. So we do have a guest speaker coming at 6 o'clock today. She's going to talk a little bit more about pricing, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on today also is pricing. So so welcome everybody. And I'm going to start by, it looks like a whole bunch of people are coming in all at once, so I'll just keep letting people in as we go. I'm going to start by talking about pricing. Today, the workshop at 6 o'clock is also about pricing, and we have Deanna Barbiani from SBDC coming at 6 o'clock, and so she's going to be going a little bit more in depth about pricing. But we wanted to talk about pricing this week because a lot of you are at the point where you need to set your price for your startups. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now, and that's Deanna's slides. Pull these in a little bit here. So I want to first go into the Canvas shell and make sure that everybody knows where to find everything. So if you go into Canvas here, oh good, you guys can all see. If you go into Canvas here, I'll put on student view and scroll down to this week. We are working on business pricing, making pricing decisions. And there's a couple of pages underneath the price and business valuation. We're not going to be talking today about the business valuation. We'll come back to that again. We're just going to be focusing on price today. And so whether you're an A, B, C, or D, I want to make sure that everybody is working on pricing this week. And depending on exactly where you are, you'll be working on different, different aspects of pricing. So if you are in the A class, you'll be at the very beginning of the process, which is determining the price of your MVP product or service. And we're going to be doing a very simplified version of pricing. So we can get much deeper when you go into pricing, but we're going to, for now, keep it very simple. So I know 2 weeks ago when we were talking about the TAM, SAM, SOM, a lot of people came to me and said, I can't estimate my TAM, SAM, SOM because I don't have price. I don't have my price determined yet. So we're going to talk today about how you determine your price if you don't have your price determined. If you already have that, you're going to be using this to estimate your TAM, SAM, SOM, which your TAM, SAM, SOM, you'll want to include that, include the estimations in your pitch deck. And then if you're further along and you've already created your TAM, SAM, SOM, like some of you are, then you'll be working on your pricing strategy, and you'll be getting a little bit deeper into the pricing. If you're in D, which a couple of you are, then we actually will be validating our assumptions, validating some of the estimates we made about pricing by talking to our customers. So no matter where you are, A, B, C, or D, hi, welcome. It looks like we have more people coming in person too. Let's go ahead and open up and more people also coming online. Let's go ahead and open up the slides for pricing. There's a video here, which you can look at, which goes into depth about determining price. And then, and here are each of our videos for A, B, C, and D for pricing. And we'll go through right now and and look at the slides for pricing. Okay, so put this on slideshow. So no matter where you are in your startup development, you need to make some determinations. You may need to make some decisions about pricing. And in the slide, there's 4 sections in the slide. I've recorded 4 videos, and we go really in depth into pricing decisions, creating a sales strategy, pricing and sales strategy, how you can use e-commerce platforms and which e-commerce platforms to use for your startup, and then how to put your business on Google. And we even touch a little bit about pricing when it comes to things like hiring, but we're not going to go that far in depth today. All we're going to talk about today is pricing, just pricing by itself, and on a very surface level. We're not, well, you guys are all at different places, but all of you need to know certain things about pricing and need to have a certain understanding about pricing. And so just so that everybody understands, we're all on the same page. Whenever we're talking about sales, what we mean is companies' income, right? Your revenue that you earn from sales of products or services. And profit is essentially your revenue minus your expenses, right? So what you make minus what you spend is what you get, the profit, right? Get the profit. So as we get further into some of the calculations, and you've seen some of the other things that we've looked at about pricing, cost of goods sold, expenses, the difference, just so you know, the difference between cost of goods sold and expenses, a cost of goods sold only includes the costs that go along with manufacturing your product or services, where expenses are all of the other costs that go into running a business, right? Not just the manufacturing costs, rather. Before we go any further, I just want to make sure that everybody understands why it's so important that we talk about pricing. So I had a customer. He was selling his business, and he asked me to help him sell his business, and he was losing money, and he didn't understand why he was losing money. And the first thing I said to him is, okay, let's look at your numbers. Let's see how much you're making on everything. How much are you making on this item, on that item? And he had a business that was it was a coffee shop. They made sandwiches, and he had one of his sandwiches. It was a really popular sandwich, and it was gorgeous sandwich. It was delicious. It was a sandwich that was like a lobster BLT with lobster bisque. It was delicious, right? And the sales price of his sandwich on the menu was something like $7. And I said, okay, so how much money are you making on your lobster BLT with lobster bisque? And he said, oh, well, this is how much we're making. This is how much we're making a week. This is how much we're making a month. Didn't have any idea how much he was making on each sandwich. He didn't have any idea what each sandwich cost him. Roughly he knew. And he had a pretty good idea of the cost of goods sold. So all of the, all the ingredients that went into the sandwich, had no idea about all of the other costs. He had hadn't calculated how much it costs in terms of wages, right? In terms of the rent, the fixed costs that go along with it. And so, long story short, when I actually got down to brass tacks, and we actually figured out how much it was costing him to make this sandwich. It cost him, it was something like $11 to make this sandwich, and he was selling it for $7, right? So he was paying people to eat his food, right? So the more sandwiches he sold, the more money he lost, and had no idea that it was even happening. And you think like, oh, that's silly, that never happened. It happens more than you think. It happens more than you think. You have to know how much everything that you're making is costing you. But that's just one little part of pricing, right? So before you get into the deep parts of pricing, look at the expenses, look at how much it costs you to actually provide your product or service, and keep in mind things like delivery expenses, supply expenses, utility expenses. So that includes things like your gas and electric. So if you have a home-based business, and you're making your product out of your home, you need to be calculating the portion of your home utilities, your gas, your electric, your rent, or your mortgage that you're using for that actual production. So I run a business out of my home, and I estimate about 25% of my home is used for the business, is used for actually, it's basically my office and part of the, hi, come on in, and part of the center part of the house. So I estimate about 25% of my expenses go towards, towards the business. So if my rent is, I don't know, $5,000 a month, that means that I'm going to be 25% of that rent I can write off, or I can calculate towards those expenses. So, and we've talked about this a lot in other sections, and I've recorded lots of videos about all this. But just understand the difference between your variable and your fixed expenses. Variable expenses are anything that varies by number of units that you sell. So those include things like for his sandwich, the actual lobster going into the lobster BLT, where your fixed expenses don't change month to month, don't change by how many you sell. So those are things like your rent and your utilities or things like this, right? All right, so lots of different ways you can calculate cost, but there's three primary ways that you should be using when you're calculating the cost for your MVP, for your initial product or service. And we want to know the cost for every single unit of what we sell, but we want to know our overall costs. And what we're doing for this week and for this assignment is we're calculating the cost, or the price rather, for our MVP. So so that's your, for each of you, that's different. That's the main thing that you're selling. So for you, that's your your which do you sell most of, Carolina? Which do you sell most of? Is it the unflavored or the flavored? So unflavored. So that's what it would be. So the cost of your unflavored, collagen supplement. And then, for Ruth, that would probably be like, what do you sell most of? What's your primary thing that you sell? Is it the
bed sheets?
Yeah, which bed sheets? It would be like the
the queens.
Yeah. So we're calculating this for our primary, thing that we sell, for your queen bed sheets, for your unflavored collagen, right? So you start with your cost base. So you have to know how much it costs you, right? So you look at all of the expenses, the fixed, the variable, including your salary, right? Because even if you're not paying yourself to do it, that goes into it. The same guy that I was telling you about, who was paying people to eat his sandwich, he also told me, when I was, coming up with the price to sell, I said, your business doesn't make any money. This is, you're upside down. Why would somebody want to pay money for this business where you're losing money every month? And he said, oh, it's fine. You just have to have family members who'll work for you and who don't get paid. Then you're profitable. Then you make money, right? No, that's not the way it works. You need to calculate how much you would be paying these people if you want to estimate profitability, including yourself. So there's your cost base. Then on top of that, we need to look at our competition-based pricing. So how much does it cost? Cover your costs, cover your expenses, make sure that there's a little bit of profit in there for you. Then look at the competitors and see how much the competitors are charging. You need to make sure that you are reasonably priced, right, compared to the competitors. Remember that price can never be a sustainable competitive advantage as an entrepreneur, as a new business owner, because the existing companies, the big companies, will win if there's a price war. They will beat you out. They can last a lot longer than you can last. But at the same time, you do want to make sure that you're competitive in your pricing, right? So look at your closest competitors, make sure that the cost is reasonable compared to the competitors. And then the final sort of method that we use for determining price is the value-based approach. And that's taking into consideration what price actually says about your product or service. What do customers perceive about you because of your price? So let's say your price is really, really low. What might people think about your business or your product? Yeah. Bad quality. What were you going to say? That it's not good, right? Yeah. The quality is bad, that it's not good. Why is it so cheap, right? Why is it so cheap? immediately their mind goes to, well, it must be, you know, the value must not be there. And so we have to keep these kind of things in mind. This is a little bit more, as you can see, a little bit more difficult to come to. And this is something, this is something that when we're first estimating our price for our TAM, SAM, SOM, for our, you know, financial estimates, we do not need to get into value-based pricing. We just need to look at how much is it costing us, right? Are we covering our costs? And what are the competitors selling for? Once you figure that out, you can calculate your TAM, SAM, SOM, you can make your estimates, you can show people projections about what your business could potentially make. But when you're getting to the point where you're actually selling, then we need to consider value-based pricing. And that's when the customer discovery comes into play, right? Speaking with our customers, finding out what they liked, what they didn't like. Would they be willing to give up a certain feature in exchange for a lower price? All of these kinds of things, all of these kinds of decisions can be made with customer discovery. And you'll have to tailor your discovery to your product. So this is where it gets a lot more complicated. We start here, okay? We start here. This is where we'll do our TAM, SAM, SOM. This is where we get a little bit deeper, okay? All right, so all of these considerations need to be kept in mind when we're coming up with pricing, right? So we do need to think about our overhead costs. We do need to think about our cost of materials. We do need to think about our time. What is it worth to make our products? How much profit do you want to make? How much is the competitors charging? We need to find a balance between expenses and revenues to create a profit price signals an ethical company. We need to be careful not to get trapped in a price war. We need to think about things like, do we want to charge a little bit more in order to deliver a little bit better product, right? Do we want to charge a little bit more to signal that we have a little bit better product? So all of these things come into mind, and we need to do all of these for every, for each of our products, and then for each of our, and then for our company in general. So when we're looking at price, blah, 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 blah. When we're looking at price, we need to know our break-even point for every item that we sell, for every day that we're open, right? For every event that we put on. We need to have a weekly break-even, a monthly break-even, an overall break-even point to say, oh, by the time, once we start our business till today, or till this number, you know, that's what do we need to break even? You should have all of these numbers figured out so that as you're going along every day, every event, every afternoon, you should know how much do I need to make to get to that point today. So, the EOU, the economics of one unit, or the cost of one unit sold, there is, if you click on each of these, it will take you into the videos and explanations for each of these, which you know, each of you can figure those out or watch a little bit more as we go. But there's also here. Let me show you where you can find everything, for each of the classes. Hi, welcome. Come on in. So again, we're all in different places. We're all coming up with different, you know, or we're all in different places when we're making pricing decisions. Each of you is somewhere else, but all of you can find information, the basic information about your pricing here in Canva. Right, in Canva, decisions about price. So if you go in A, it's right here near the bottom. If you're in course, I'll show you one of the other courses. Oh, we can't get to it because I'm in student view. Let me leave student view. So if you are in, let's say, course D, you can go into your modules right here, right there at the bottom. It's the most recent one, decisions about price. So, each of you, A, B, C, or D, will be working on different parts of your pricing. But all of you all of you should put your pricing decisions into your elevator pitch. So for your elevator pitch, I know all of you have been working on your pitch, and I've been looking at your guys' pitches. And by the way, Thursday again, 4 to 8 p.m. we'll be here to help with whatever you need help with. But I've been helping a lot of you with your elevator pitches, and a lot of you are stuck on this TAM SAM because of the pricing, and that's fine. Now we should be able to, after what we talked about today, all of you should be able to get enough to do your TAM SAM. So you have your, you have your pitch deck template here. These are the things, this is the team slides, value proposition. Here's your TAM SAM, right? Here's your TAM SAM. So all of you now will be able to calculate your TAM SAM because you have price, right? So remember, the TAM is just the, it's just the industry in which you are operating for your MVP, right? So maybe if your industry is, I don't know, if you're selling, bed sheets, thank you. You're selling bed sheets, so you're in the hospitality industry. And so we know our revenue, number of customers, there are however many million people that are buying or in the hospitality industry per year. The hospitality industry itself is a whatever $1 billion a year industry. That's easy to find. This we just Google. The SAM and the SOM is where a lot of you were stuck, because in order to calculate your SAM, it's your industry, including or bound by geography. So it's not just all of the entire hospitality industry in the United States. Your SAM might be California, right? The hospitality industry in the state of California, and more on top of that, your SAM will also include other variables to make it more specific for you. So not just hospitality industry, but bed sheet sales, right? In the state of California in the last 1 to 3 years or 1 to 5 years. So you want to make it geographically bound by area. You want to make it time bound for somewhere from 1 to 5 years. And then any other of the main variables that make your, clearly show what your industry is or where you're selling. And then once we have those variables in there, so whatever those variables are in the state of California, maybe we say in the last 3 years, and we actually have bed sheet sales, right? Now we have, and you can figure out the number of customers, potential customers. Now we can also figure out what the potential revenue is, because we know how to calculate price, right? And we are, and then we are calculating price, not in a super detailed way with all 3 of those variables that we were talking about. Let me go back over here, not with all, or I'm sorry, with all 3 methods we were talking about, but for our TAM SAM SOM, we're just keeping it very, very high level, big picture. And if you know what your costs are, you can use your cost base. If you're not quite there yet, you're still working on it. At very least, we can use the competitor-based pricing, so we can see what the competitors are charging to see our potential revenue. Yeah, Ruth, question.
I just had a question. So I was trying to find the service addressable market.
Yeah.
The total. So I know I know the one for, let's say, I had a hard time finding the one for the hospitality and healthcare. The reports are for sale. I have to purchase them. They're like 4,000.
So you don't need to get, so just for those of you at home, Ruth was saying, like, to get the actual data, they want to sell the actual data, right? And they want it to sell for thousands of dollars. You can find data that you don't need to purchase, that's going to give you data that's good enough for projections without having to pay a lot. And the best way to do it, what I recommend, is go to the library. We pay a lot of money to have access to data, to industry data here at Miramar College. And those librarians are so good at finding that data. You just go and tell them, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is my student ID number. I'm in this class. Can you help me find this data? And they can find it almost always without you having to pay. Yeah. Yeah, so that's what I would recommend doing. So it's not easy to find.
Based on what you just explained, I don't know if I misunderstood, but could we get the, let's say the obtainable market base?
Not the obtainable market, so the addressable market. So the obtainable market, the SOM is just a percentage.
I know, so, but you were explaining about we could make projections, like I'm looking for investment and this is the part that.
This is what you're doing is creating projections about what what potentially you could make. Now, we're not expecting that you capture all of this. So the serviceable addressable market is 100% of the market that has been with the variables that we talked about, but there's no way you're ever going to calculate or capture 100%. No way, no way, no way. So that's where it comes to the share of market, right? That's a percentage of this. So we're estimating, these are projections that we're making, projections of potential. So maybe your potential, your industry is
$104 billion.
Yeah, $104 billion and 100 million customers, right? So, and your SAM might be
20 billion USA.
$20 billion and however many customers, then the share of market will be a percentage of that.
So, and you have spoken about that, the obtainable market, never say 10%. So
Never
usually startups use 1%.
Maybe. So what you do is you look at what other people in the industry have captured, and then you can make an assumption based on that. If you can't find it, if you can't find any data about in this industry, people have like the top 10 competitors each have 5% market share. If you can't find that, 1% is a good place to start. You don't want to go, without, in the absence of all other data, you don't want to go higher than 1%, because then, the next question is, what on earth makes you think you could capture 1% market share, right? Like, yeah. So sometimes it's easy. Some industries are easy. You can just go in there and it says, oh, it's easy. The top 10 competitors each have 5% market share or 2% market share. And then you can say, well, we think we can get 0.5% over the next 3 years, or, none of this is hard, fast numbers. All you're doing is saying, I looked it up, right? I looked it up and this is potentially what I could make. And everything that I'm saying, it's based on logic. It's based on something that I found, right? And so, that's what you'll have to do. People will say, well, why do you think you can get this percentage rate? Why do you think if you said 10%, why do you think you could get 10%? If you had a reason why you thought you could get 10%, right? There's only a couple of competitors in the market. There's a high probability that we can capture all 10% of that market, and this is why. Sure, you could say that, but yeah.
Was the 1% for the SAM or the SOM?
The SOM. So SOM is a percentage of SAM. SOM is a percentage of SAM. And so, by the way, and also for the people at home, if you haven't watched the video on TAM, SAM, SOM, I know we went over this a couple weeks ago, but if you have not watched it, watch the video on TAM, SAM, SOM. Last couple months ago, I gave a presentation at UCSD, and I talked about how you calculate each TAM, SAM, and SOM. And so I really recommend watching that.
Did you know that most hemp oil
calculating that TAM, SAM. Yeah, if you haven't watched this, I would really strongly recommend that you watch this, because I go over it in depth. This is not where people were getting stuck. After we had gone over this, is price. We couldn't go forward on the price because a lot of people were, they could find all the data for everything, but then they couldn't find the data on price, or what do I do for price? But now, for price, just make sure that you are covering your costs. Oh, here's our pricing slides. That you are covering your costs, right? And that you're look and see what the competitors are charging, right? We're not gonna get into this right here until and unless you are in section C or D, and you already have a relationship established with your customers through your customer discovery. Then we're going to use that the data that we've gathered, the connections that we've gathered from our customer discovery, and we'll start doing some of that value-based pricing. Yeah, and yeah, we can talk about exactly how to do that. So I'm going to pause right here, and I'm going to ask if there are questions from home, because I'm sure I feel like I've kind of ignored everybody at home and then everybody here. Questions from home, Angela or anybody else at home? Questions about pricing? Okay, no questions. Okay.
No, wait,
Tanya,
I have
what
a question.
about-
Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry. I don't know who said that.
Tanya,
I
did you
have
hear us?
questions.
Okay. So,
And the other one was me, Sasha.
okay. So, let's go first, Sasha, and then we'll go to Kima.
So as far as, since I'm not selling a product, but a service, and it's kind of a sort of a, I wouldn't really know where to start looking for competitors in that.
All right. So his question is like, how do you do this for services? So, yeah, the hardest thing to do is really to find data more than anything else. That's the hardest thing to do is find the data. It works the exact same way, whether it's a service or a product. When you're calculating, it's exactly the same. Now,
Because I'm more familiar with what we did with my brother, and that's more understandable, at least to me, because it's a physical thing and it's got, but in this case that it's something else, I'm kind of, that's the thing that I was thinking about, like, how do I figure that one out, sort of thing.
so
just-
are you, so what is your, what service is it that you're trying to sell?
What is that, basically co-packing or making white label products for other companies?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's tough. Yours is going to be, I think for you, there's going to be a lot of customer discovery. I think you're going to have to, for estimating the price, I don't think you're going to find somebody who's doing exactly what you're doing. And for a lot of
Right.
you, true, you're not going to find somebody who's doing exactly what you're doing. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to, in the beginning, at least, you're going to have to find an industry or a service that's somewhat similar. And then, look what people are charging for that service, just as a starting point. Yours is going to be a lot more, your primary research is going to be a lot more important than your secondary research. You know what I mean? They're both important, but I think
Yeah.
yeah, it's just going to give you a starting point, and then you're going to have to make modifications, based on what you, what you learn from that. So at first, I must have, yeah. And then I would say for you too, like maybe on Thursday when you're coming in, we can look at some competitors some competitors and try to find something that's sort of close enough to give us a starting point, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's
cool.
what I would do. Yeah. And then Kima had a question.
Thank you.
And then, yeah, of course.
Yes, mine is sort of like Sasha's. Well,
Thank you.
actually, it's probably the same.
Yeah, because
So-
you're a service and it's, and
Yes.
it's a service and nobody's doing something exactly like what you're doing. And so what we're going to have to
Will we
do
do
is
like mental health or mental wellness?
I think we're going to have, I mean, yeah, we could start there. We could start there and kind of, and make some predictions based on what we think people are going to do. It's definitely going to be same with Sasha. The primary research I think is going to be a little bit more important. Talking to the customers right afterwards is going to be a little bit more important, but we do need somewhere to start with. So yeah, maybe we start with that and then we go from there. Angela, did you have something?
With the revenue of
Health
mental
or-
wellness or mental health? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's the best we could do. Yeah. What were you going to say, Angela?
I was thinking about maybe they need to work it backwards. So maybe look at their cost of business and their overhead, and then looking at the profit that they want to make, and then having it the unit price would possibly be the hour of service.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe instead of going top down, going bottom up. Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, we
Can
definitely
you write that down, what Angela said?
say that again.
I was asking
Oh.
Kima if she could write down what Angela
And
said.
don't worry, we're recording it. So you don't have to watch it again. Yeah. But I do think it's still important to look and see what competitors are charging for a similar service and then kind of going from there and you know.
Definitely. Tanya, for us at home, I know you were going over some examples in the class we couldn't necessarily hear when you were talking about the Psalm and how the Psalm is just a piece of the pie, right? And that they're never going to have 100% of that. And if they go to a pitch competition, right, how
Like an idiot.
it's gonna,
Yeah.
they're gonna, exactly, they won't be taken serious.
Yeah, you look like a dummy. You look like a dummy if you go in there and you say, "Oh, I want to get 50%. I expect to get 50% SOM, or I think I can get 25% SOM." There is no way you're going to get that kind of a SOM. It's a percentage of the pie. Yeah, yeah. Good point, Angela. Good point. Calvin, you had a question.
So what if you don't have any competitors? Are you able to look for other, like, for a service, like in other industries?
Yes, yeah, you find the closest. You find the something that is most representative of it. Yeah. For a lot of you, you don't have exact direct competitors because it's new. You know, a lot of what we're doing is new. So yeah. Other questions about pricing, about TAM, Samsung? Yeah, go for it.
The one that I'm gonna ask is for the Samsung. Like for me, would I be focused more on the early adopters or everybody? Because my early adopters is very specific versus pretty wide.
So he was asking for his TAM Samsung when he's making his estimations, is he looking at his early adopters or all different market segments, right? So when we're making these estimates.
Great question.
So it is a great question. The estimates that we're making, don't think of it so much as which of our market segments we're going to be selling to. Think of it as more by time, right? Time bound. So if you know, maybe you're going to calculate for the first 5 years. You want to capture 1% market share in the first 5 years. That might be. I don't know, 80% of your early adopter market segment, and then 5 other market segments that you would capture within that time period. And then, or it might just be your early adopters. If you think, oh, I'm only going to be able to capture that amount. So think of it by time. How many market segments could I realistically target and capture within that period of time? So if it's 5 years, that changes a lot between 1 year. If it's 1 year, I doubt you're going to be able to go after, 5 different market segments in 1 year. But in 5 years, yeah, I mean, why not, right? Maybe I have 20 market segments that I'm hoping to capture. And maybe I think I can get half of that within those first 5 years, right?
So like for me, it'd be realistic. Okay, my addressable market is not only children, not only neurodivergent children, but virtual reality users, video game users, that can all be mixed in.
Yep. And that's why Sam, when I'm always telling you, like, Sam is not the same thing as your early adopters. This is not your beachhead. It's bigger than your beachhead, right? That's why we don't just include our beachhead in there, or else it would just be calculating our beachhead, which would be relatively small. And it doesn't give investors or anyone a good true picture of what your potential market capture could be, right? We could be able to capture a lot more in that amount of time if we do things right. Yeah, that's a good question. Other questions from home about TAM Samsung, about pricing?
I just have one question that's kind of like a subjective strategic question, which is,
yeah.
I feel like most people who are bringing a product to the market for the first time are going to get the price wrong, either overcharge or undercharge. So is there like a period of time, in which it's acceptable to drastically change your price?
There's no, just like everything in entrepreneurship, it depends, right? It depends. You don't ever want to get it drastically wrong, but that's part of the reason why we sort of start small, so that we can fail small, right? So you can make these mistakes and do stupid things in a small enough group that your entire potential market segment doesn't realize, oh, they don't know what they're doing, right? So I mean, I hate to say it, you are going to fail, you are going to get it wrong. There's no doubt about it. you're not going to get it 100% right the first time. So that's why we start small and we kind of, yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Other questions?
Can I just ask you something real quick? Just something I found. I want to ask you, would this like be something to start my TAM? Yeah, the TAM, the top tier.
Industry.
So yeah. So I looked up holistic wellness industry.
Uh-huh.
And this is something I found. It says wellness is a big global business with 5.6 trillion in revenue in 2022, according to a new report. The Global Wellness Institute, a leading industry group research from nonprofit organization, said the industry has gone to 3.4
What's the question? What's the
trillion.
question? What's the question?
So would this be something I continue to look into for my TAM? Is this
So that gives
this
you,
what
I mean,
you're
if
looking
that,
for as the whole industry type
if
thing?
that gives you, no, if it looks like a reputable source, if it looks like a
Yeah.
reputable source that you could cite that source and people could say, yes, I trust that, you look no further. You've got your TAM, you've got it figured out. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
if it gives you the revenue and it gives you the number of human beings, you're good to go. Now you just need to look at what variables are unique to you so that you can tailor that down to your specific product or service. And then you figure out what percentage of that for your share market. So, yeah,
I'm sorry. So mm, so how what would be a key word to look for the customers within that revenue?
how many people are in there? I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Okay.
You can, I mean,
Okay.
you look up the number
I'll
of
look
people
at that
in there.
alone.
Yeah, we can play
Yeah.
around with it. We can play around with it.
All
Okay.
360 million people in
Oh,
America.
there you go, right there. If it says 300, yeah, right.
Everybody has a mental problem.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just-
Good point, Yolanda. Yeah, good point. So, yes, I still had a question.
Thanks
Sybil,
for that.
yeah,
Thanks for that.
of course. Sybil, you had a question?
Yes, I do. I doing software as a service or
Software-
Hi,
so
Rochelle.
SaaS. And so most of the examples you gave were like one-time purchases. So
Yeah,
when I do pricing, do I do the one-time cost?
Oh, I'm doing
Plus-
great. Great. Go
Hold
to
on,
Colorado.
Yolanda, you got to mute yourself. I muted her. Okay, sorry.
Plus hosting costs, plus marketing, or do I just how do I price software as a
Yours
service?
is more
that's so
difficult. Yours
easy?
is more difficult because you have to, figure out how much people are spending. And once again, it depends.
Yeah.
You want to include all of those costs in there. Are they likely paying for those upgrades, or is your primary revenue coming in from, is it primarily like secondary sources for revenue? I mean, yours is going to
Okay.
be a little bit harder to determine, but you
Okay.
do want to include those.
All right.
What's particularly difficult is if it's a freemium model where you're not charging anything and they're just paying for premium services, that makes it even more challenging. But
Yeah,
you
not
wanna-
premium. So good. Not premium.
you want to include, you'll want to include those in there. Yeah, you'll
Okay.
definitely.
Thank you.
Yours is just extra work. Yeah. Other questions? Okay, so we have in about 15 minutes, we have a workshop on pricing. We have somebody coming from the SBDC who's going to be talking, who's going to be diving a lot more into pricing strategies, and he'll be answering questions about pricing. The beauty of SBDC as well is that they're actually able to offer support for when we have questions, when you need somebody to look at your data, look at your reports. They're there to do that, right? So Deanna's going to be coming here in a little bit. She's going to give a presentation on it, and then also she'll be available, this week during our open office hours. I wanted to show one other thing though before we take a little break here. Let me pull this up here. So one other thing I wanted to show some of you, because I see some of you are here from different sections. So A, B, C, and D, right? A, we want you to determine your price of your initial offering. B is estimating that TAM, SAM, SOM using the price. C, the pricing strategy. So I wanted to, oopsie, sorry, that was our video on it. I want to make sure that those of you who are at the point where you have your price figured out, you have your TAM, SAM, SOM figured out, you're further ahead, that you start making decisions about pricing strategies, not just for each unit of what you sell individually, but overall in general. Your pricing is tied, hand in hand with your sales and with customer acquisition, right? And so every decision that you make, you want to keep in mind, how am I going to get customers with this? How am I going to keep the customers, right? Or how am I going to not lose the customers that I do have or get new customers? And so, so those of you who are a little bit further along, I want you to really start making some decisions about your pricing strategies for each of your different market segments, because you might have a different price for every single market segment, just dependent on who's buying your product, right? So think about things like volume discounts, right? Think about what when you do things like give a discount, what does that say to your potential customers, right? Think about how you can make them love you, support you, want to keep giving you business with price, how you can use price to do that. So some of you have very, very, very different market segments. Even your different segments might be totally different industries. Like, well, I don't know, I'll pick somebody other than Ruth, but okay, yeah, we can pick Calvin's business. So his app.
It would be agricultural enterprises, real estate developers, and construction firms, or environmental NGOs.
So he has very different customer segments, right? Some of them are industry, some of them are independent people, some are B2B, some are B2C. And so think about price for each one of those and how you can use price to sort of get what you need to do. So what you want, right, to make your business succeed. All of you should be making, those of you who are that far along should be working on making money, right? You should be working on making money. So I'll help if any of you need any help with your with your pricing strategies. You might even want to have create separate marketing material for each one of those separate market segments. I know On is doing this. He's selling his some of his surfboards he's selling to schools, right? And some of them he's selling to hotels, and some of them he's selling to individual people. So each of them are a different market segment. He has his target market for each one of those separate. And the price is not going to be the same for all of them, and the marketing material isn't going to be the same. So think about that. Create the marketing materials specifically for each of those target markets. And create or set the price in such a way that it's going to maximize that profitability, right? Maybe you sell a lot less of a product if you increase the price, but overall you end up making more money because the profit per unit is so high. Or maybe you do a very, very low profit per unit, but you sell so many that you make up the profit that way. So all of those things you want to keep in mind, right? And I was going over, I said I was going to give us a nice break between the other thing. Other questions for anybody before we take our little break before the next part of the class? Anybody at home? Anybody here? Okay, 10-minute break, and then we're going to have SBDC come and talk a little bit more about, she's going to talk about vendor relations, about pricing and supply chain. So I'll push pause on the recording there.